Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Tutors Association National Conference 2021. It's my great pleasure to welcome you all back to a national conference after the hiatus in 2020 for obvious reasons. The Tutors Association will be hosting your questions just following Nadeem Zahawi, the Secretary of State's speech for us, which will be a few minutes long after my introduction and welcome here. So if you've got any questions that you'd like to pose to the Association, please put them in the Q&A at the bottom of your screens so that we can address those for you and tackle any of the issues that you would like to hear our thoughts on, or any of the questions that you would like us to respond to. So again, just if you've got any questions, please do put them in at the Q&A at the bottom and we'll address those after Nadeem Zahawi's address. So welcome back after COVID and after the hiatus of over a year now, 2 years since our last conference at the Royal Society, and it feels like a very long time. I'm delighted to welcome you all to our wonderful online virtual conference, and we've been having a fantastic time working with speakers from across the tuition sector and across the education sector to bring to you a conference that we can be really proud of. The key theme for this year is 2022, the changing face of tutoring. We know that tutoring has changed fundamentally in many ways over the past 12 and 24 months. Historically, tutoring has been a fragmented sector. It was only in 2013 that the Tutors Association was even founded. And before that, there was no formal association or union of the tuition profession at all. Obviously, tuition is one of the oldest professions in the world, and it's probably, if not certainly, the oldest form of education. And you are continuing that legacy which stretches back thousands of years. Tuition has now changed very substantially in just the last 2 years since our last conference. One of the key changes is that tuition has come from being something which is very much on the sidelines of the education system and has been for over 150 years. It's gone from being something that parents do and they secure for their children but they don't really talk about. It's gone from being something which is in the periphery of educational policy, if even mentioned at all. And now, look where we are. Tuition has never before been so prominent in the agenda of a modern nation and its education policy. Nowadays, the Tutors Association and the tuition profession as a whole is instrumental and a central component of national education policy. The tutors that are delivering tuition across the country are now going into schools. They're now delivering tuition online. They're delivering tuition across the spectrum, not only to those parents who can and those families who've got the means to afford it for themselves, but it is now a central component of the government's national educational catch-up and progression. Tuition is here to stay. It's always been here, but it is now so much more prominent. And that means that you, as tutors, are now in the spotlight in the way you've never been before. So it makes sense for us to consider, how did we get here? And what's going on about it? And what's the Tutors Association doing for you? And that in many ways is where this conference comes in. The Tutors Association has, over the past 24 months, really championed what it is that tutors and tuition providers need in order to help students and help them achieve, especially in such trying and testing times. We've been engaging tirelessly on your behalf with a whole range of stakeholders, from parental groups to government ministers, civil servants, and the government's contractors of various different guises under the NTP or elsewhere. We've been working very hard to make sure that as tuition becomes a central component of the national picture of education, we are helping to make sure that tutors' voices, your voices, the voices of tuition companies and the people that know about tuition the most, to make sure those voices are heard and listened to as far as we can. And we're having some great successes. Tuition is now not only on the public consciousness, but people are starting to understand that this entire sector that has already existed for a very long time, it has a central role to play. Children up and down the country are now benefiting from this tuition, whether or not they can afford it themselves. It's being funded. It is an enormous component of the budgetary commitments that have been given to the Department for Education in order to improve pupil progress and attainment as we move back into an era where we're going to exams, where GCSEs will be held as per usual as they were in the past, and where we have the same sorts of qualifications and the same forms of assessment that we have had historically. Obviously, we can't wipe out the fact that 2 years of disruption has blighted the educational progress and the academic careers of so many students across the country and across the world. And this is obviously a place where tutors come in. And who better could it be? Tutors are some of the most innovative education professionals that there are in the world. And we're only beginning to scratch the surface of conveying that message to the wider public. Only beginning. And the reason I say this is because whilst there has been a shift over the past 24 months to implementing tuition into schools, into mainstream education, and for parents to be more open and discuss how they want to give tuition and its benefits to their children, there has been an acknowledgement at the same time that tuition is very effective. The Education Endowment Foundation's own research, which predates the pandemic itself, has demonstrated that tuition is highly effective. And they weren't even assessing and evaluating the best tutors. We know that there has been a blind spot in educational policy making when it comes to the tuition sector. But even still, the limited examples of tuition they have evaluated and the few business models of tuition and the few categories of tutors they have evaluated so far to date have demonstrated that tuition is one of the most impactful interventions that can be put in place for a student. One of the most impactful. And it's not just me as president of the Tutors Association that's here to tell you this. The Secretary of State for Education, Nadeem Zahawi, who will be addressing us in a few moments' time, has agreed. And this has come from Rishi Sunak, the Chancellor himself, who in his recent budget has pointed out explicitly that tutoring is one of the key interventions that the government wants to fund, because they know the evidence is there that students can make more progress if we help to provide them with tuition. And why is that? Do we stop to think, what is it about tuition that has this incredible power? Let's think about it now. Tuition is an extraordinarily personalised form of education. For a long time, it has seemed that the gold standard of education is qualified teachers. That may be very well and good, and qualified teachers do an outstanding job across the country, often in very challenging conditions, teaching lessons to as many as 30 students in a class. But we know that many tutors, and not all, many tutors are former teachers themselves. And the evidence from some of those teachers who've gone into tuition is astounding. Some of those people have had fundamental and incredibly impactful influences on the lives of the students they've gone on to teach on an individual or small group basis. Tutors can have this impact because you're taking the expertise and the curriculum knowledge and the subject knowledge, and you're taking all of that intense resource and focus and you're giving it to one student or a few students at a time. And imagine what that does. Well, you don't need to imagine, because most of you watching today will have seen firsthand The moments when children and young people, or adults even, have understood things that they've struggled with, have made progress they didn't think was possible before. Because tutors, unlike classroom teachers, have the ability for almost unlimited flexibility. If you find that your student is struggling in an area of the course that wasn't planned to be addressed in the tutorial, you can change, you can switch. Very quickly you can provide the sort of assistance that they really need at that point in time. You're constantly observing your students, you're constantly in tune with where it is that they're understanding. And this is of incredible value. Incredible value. It is fundamentally transforming the lives of students, and not always in a way that you are necessarily seeing. One of my favourite aspects of being a tutor over the years has been to hear from people who've come back to me and said, "Oh, John, you taught me these years ago. And I'm really proud to tell you I've done this. I've gone on and have achieved great things." And I know it's not just me who's been in that position. Many, many of you, as tutors and tuition companies, will have heard from your students coming back to you from the past and saying, "Look, I've really excelled. Thank you very much for what you've done." But many of them won't. And so this is why one of the things I want to convey to you as members, as some of the best tutors in the country, thank you from the students you've been teaching over the pandemic and before, and from the students that you will teach in future. Because I know, and I can say with confidence, you will have a substantial impact on their life chances going forwards. So, tutors are one of the most adaptable, dynamic, and personalised forms of educational intervention we can put in place for a student. I know very well the technology sector in education. I understand the benefits it can offer to schools, students, teachers and tutors. But it's never going to come quite so close as having an educational expert giving that dedicated time to a student and making that student's life potentially be transformed with the flexibility, with the subject knowledge, and with that skill and professionalism that we know that good tutors have. So, the key sum up of the message that I wanted to convey to you this morning is be innovative. You are already in a position which is a complete luxury amongst educators across the world, where you have generally few bureaucratic restraints, you have a lot of flexibility within tutorials, very often tutors have got a fair degree of autonomy, and use that. Be innovative, innovate in your practice, develop your subject knowledge, develop your pedagogy and your skills, develop your ability to influence students' lives. And in doing so, everyone, stakeholders from across the education spectrum will be very grateful to you. So go out, innovate, and have the impact that you can have on those children and young people, those families, those schools who would need your help now more than ever, and who I'm sure you will be happy to assist in order to achieve great things. So there will be, towards the end of this conference, a few other times when I will come to address you. And at the closing speech I have for you today, which will be fairly short, there will be a significant announcement that I would have to make for you in regards to TTA policy going forwards. So I do hope you will be able to stay with us for the entire conference and join me in that closing session at 10 to 4, where we'll be able to address you and provide you with some insight on how TTA is going to continue supporting all members, individual and corporate, going forwards. And I'm very excited about the conference we have here today. A huge thank you for our sponsors today, who have helped to make this possible. In particular, I'd like to thank the headline sponsors for the Tutors Association conference in 2021, Connex Educational Partnership, and the Classroom Partnership, the umbrella group of companies and portfolio. They have been instrumental in supporting the Tutors Association conference this year, and we are very grateful to them for their support. They have also contributed speakers to a number of our events today, and we have an incredible lineup of speakers from across the tuition spectrum, both former teachers, tutors, people that have got other expertise from other areas. I'd also like to thank our platinum sponsors, Bramble, an online tuition platform, Collins, the publisher, Galore Park, again a publisher, providing excellent resources between them, and Mine in Academia, an excellent teacher training and CPD offering and service. And I'd also like to thank the other sponsors who've been kind enough to be supportive of TTA in our mission to try and bring you this fantastic conference online so that you can access some of the world-leading thought in tuition and even broader education today. So, thank you very much for being here. Thank you for your attendance at the conference today. What I would like to do is reiterate that don't forget at the bottom of your screen now you'll have the Q&A. If you have questions for the association, please put them in there and we will address them after Nadim Zahawi. So if you've got questions about how the TTA is, what trajectory it's on, how it can support members, or even just questions about your tuition practice or about how you might need support in various different areas, then please do. Make use of the opportunity now. Let us know what it is you want us to help you with, give us your questions, and we will address them for you.